And so I try to figure out, what can I do for myself to avoid those situations of saying yes when I don't really want to? Welcome to Get Real, Get Results. I'm your host, Chantell Preston. I've got over 2 decades of experience in healthcare operations, project management, and consulting, and I've navigated the dance of career advancement and personal satisfaction firsthand. Get Real, Get Results is your go-to resource for navigating the complexities of a modern-day success without sacrificing your well-being. So buckle up and get ready to challenge the status quo, shatter limiting beliefs, and embark on a transformative journey toward a more authentic, balanced, and fulfilling life. This is Get Real, Get Results, and I'm honored to have you join me. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me again today. I'm Chantell Preston, the host of Get Real, Get Results. Today, we're going to kind of jump right on in. We're going to talk about why we feel like we have to say yes to everything. Why do we feel obligated to do everything? At home, at work. I have to say, when I was younger, I realized that it was my job to kind of do anything and everything someone asked me to do. I think we were raised that way. My parents always be respectful to your elders, do what they ask. I think it's kind of creating a bad scenario because as I've gotten older, I realize I'm doing a lot of stuff that I just don't want to do. And why am I doing that? Because I feel like I owe it to somebody. So I want to talk about that today. Women in particular, we have a habit of taking on a lot of work that what I call is non-productive. Does it help us achieve our ultimate goals, whether it be personal or professional? I know at work, in the situation I'm in, that most of my partners are male, and they'll say, basically, hey, Chantell, will you do this for me? And it's not because it's my job, it's because they know that I have integrity and that I'll get it done. That's the reality. One day, a couple of years ago, I woke up and I said, why am I doing this? Why am I continuing to take the brunt of all this non-productive work when it doesn't really associate with my job expectations or my goals and objectives? So at that point, I realized I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm just not. They're going to have to figure out how to do their own jobs. And I think a lot of us get into that cycle about just having to do things. Why? Because we're moms, we're spouses, we're career women. So in our world, we just do it. We don't ask, we don't think about it, we just do it. How do we make it happen? We just make it happen. I had this conversation with my spouse a couple weeks ago. How do you make everything happen? Well, you just do. And I think we're so programmed that when someone asks us something, it's just easier for us to do it ourselves than to ask somebody else to do it or have to show somebody else to do it or to push back. It's just, just give it to me, because I know that it's going to be done right. It's going to be done on time. But who are we really hurting in that situation? It's kind of like a situation that I've been in recently. I have a lot of people that'll come to me and ask me to do things. And I'm one of those people that I'm like, ooh, shiny penny. Ooh, that sounds so fun. I want to do it, right? And then I get home and I go, oh my God, why did I agree to do this? I don't want to do it. I don't have time to do it. Sounded like a good idea at the time. I had good intentions, but now how the hell do I get myself out of it, right? Have you been in that situation? I'm sure I'm not the only one that does that. And so I try to figure out, what can I do for myself to avoid those situations of saying yes when I don't really want to? I'm programmed to do what people ask me to do. I like to make people happy. I want to help everyone. So I've really had to figure out in my career how to say no in a productive or a compassionate way, I should say. One example I had recently that was kind of entertaining is a friend of mine asked me to have breakfast with a young lady that was beginning her entrepreneurial career. I said, sure, nothing makes me happier than to talk to people, tell them a little bit about, what to expect. I'll give them the real truth of it's not all rainbows and unicorns. So I go to the lunch, I make the time, I block my calendar. Again, I've got 9 million things. This is the last thing I want to do, but I block my calendar. I go to breakfast. I sit down. This young lady shows up, and there's not 5 minutes in, I realize, oh my gosh, what a waste of my time. Not because this individual wasn't incredibly polite and nice, but they had zero idea of what they wanted to do, how they were going to do it. So basically, they wanted me to create this business for them, which that wasn't my intention of going. I thought I was going to advise or, be an ear, like I normally do. But I realized I have to stop this madness. I have to take care of myself and say no to things, because at the end of the day, it cost me 2 hours of my life that I'll never get back, right? And time is the one thing I'll never get back. And so I made a commitment to myself that I would try to assess every situation when someone asked me to do something. Number one, I never say no immediately. And number two, how does this really integrate with my personal goals and objectives? Does it help me in some way personally? Does it help me some way professionally? But how can this interaction really benefit me or what I'm trying to achieve? Now, with that being said, that sounds really callous. It says, oh, I'm not going to help anybody. I'm only out for myself. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's important for us to look at things. I've had situations where I've said yes to things. I'll give you an example. I was asked to be on a board. It was a great opportunity for me. It was one of my friends was part of the board. She told me all about it. It sounds spectacular. I was getting to sit at the table with all these very high-powered individuals. I got into this board and I realized, oh my gosh, this is not for me, right? I don't have the time, because what they told me, because I went through my due diligence, I met with everybody on the board. We talked about roles and responsibilities. We talked about time allotment. And I thought, okay, I can handle this. I can do it. It sounds like it would be beneficial to me, both professionally and personally, getting to know some of these folks. But when I got there, I realized it was nothing like they had described. And frankly, I just didn't have the time or maybe even the expertise to provide them what they needed. So, I hate to admit, I don't know everything. So I was like, oh my gosh, how do I get myself out of this? And I realized I wasn't just doing me a disservice, I was doing them a disservice. I was doing them a disservice because they had me sitting at the table, and frankly, I just wasn't the right person for them. And so after a long time of hem and hawing about it and trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, I realized it was both in my best interest and in theirs to step off and find them somebody, and I did help them find someone to replace me that had the skill set that they were looking for specifically. When I'm looking at things like that, I'm looking at not only does it benefit me, but does it benefit them? But also, I have to look at what's important to me right now. We all look at our lives in certain ways. We look at, where are we professionally? Where are we age-wise? Where are kids? We need to take assessment of that pretty frequently, because what was important to me a year ago is not still important to me now. Things change in my life. So how do I make sure that when I'm saying yes and when I'm saying no, it's really for the point of where I am at that point in time in my life? And so I really challenge all of you guys, because, again, I'm thinking maybe you've been in that same situation. You think today, hey, this is what I need to do, but it's not going to start for a year. Well, how do you know that's where you're going to be in a year? How do you know that's where you're going to be in 6 months? Or maybe you agreed to something a year ago and you've been on it for a year and you go, it's just not providing me the same energy as it used to. That's where I really challenge you to take more time. And it's not a lot of time, 5 minutes to say, hey, what's important to me right now? These are the top 3 things that are important to me right now. And then make sure that what you agree to is part of those overall goals and objectives of where you are right then. So I just gave you a great example of an experience I went through where I realized it was a complete waste of my time. And you're saying, but wait, you say ask for people to help, and now you're telling us don't ask for people to help. Which is it? No, I get it. I guess my objective here is I want you to be someone's best yes, meaning that I encourage women to help each other. I encourage you to ask a mentor. My point behind that is when you go talk to someone, make sure that you have a specific ask. Make sure you have your shit together. People's time is valuable, and nothing makes me happier than when someone shows up and they've got notes written, they've done their due diligence on who I am and how I can help them, because then I know that it's not a waste of my time. And frankly, those are the ones I will continue to help, because I get that when they ask me for help, they're cognizant and they respect my time. And so that makes me want to help them even more. When you're going out and you're looking at helping, because again, we're going to talk about tribe and building your tribe. I want you to find another individual within your organization and say, hey, can we have a 30-minute coffee and practice this? Come with a sheet of saying, hey, look, these are some of the things I'm concerned or interested in learning more about. Can you help me? But be ready, be prepared. Again, it goes back to everything in life. The more prepared you are, the more you're going to get out of it. 10 minutes on the front end will save you a lot of time on the back end. Be prepared when you're going into that conversation, that you know what your specific ask. Women are horrible about asking. Okay, we all want to talk about our kids and our families and our boyfriends and spouses because we have never been taught how to ask what we really want. And so that gives you an opportunity to practice that as well. Practice that with somebody. Practice the ask. Great example. A friend of mine is going through this situation with his daughter right now about one of the school fundraisers. We all do it. And it was fascinating because he said one of the hardest things he ever had to learn to do was how to ask for money, which we all hate to ask for money. But in business, sometimes you have to ask for money. You raise capital. He's teaching his daughter on this charity event how to really ask people for money. So they're doing due diligence on the individuals so they know where their wherewithal is about how much money they could possibly donate. And then when they go talk to them, she's very professional. She's done her homework. And it seems as though every time she does the ask, they end up donating a lot more than what she asked for. Why? Because she's done her due diligence. She's done her homework. She's coming to you. She's learning how to appropriately have an ask. I challenge each of you guys to try that and see if you can make that work. The other thing I want you to think about is how much can you really handle personally? We all think we can do it all. We talked about that a little while ago. We just do it. We just get it done. Kids got to go here, kids got to go there, work's got this, I got a dog, I got all these things. But really take inventory on what you can truly handle. Sometimes we get so caught up in the rat race, we're just doing without really being effective. And I call that treading water. And my folks around me know, I feel like I'm treading water, meaning I'm doing a lot of things, but I'm doing nothing well. It's like I'm half-assing everything, which doesn't make me feel good. So if I go back and take inventory and say, okay, how much can I handle right now? And look, handle doesn't just always mean time. It means mental capacity. It means time. It means energy. It means all kinds of things. But how much can I handle and how much can I allot to these different things? That's something you got to take inventory on a consistent basis because it'll ebb and flow. It'll change. The other thing I want to leave you with is think about this. If you don't control your own time, somebody else will. That means if I'm not in control of and put boundaries around things, somebody else is going to fill your time and your energy. And so you have to make decision what's important to you. And that goes back to saying yes. Look, we all like to help people. We all like to do things for others. The most important yes is to yourself. What can I handle right now? Right? What other things do I want to do? How do I want to control my time to achieve my objectives, personally, professionally, all of it? So again, just think about those things as you progress through your journey. And keep in mind, just because you don't say yes, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a no. It could be, no, I can't do that. However, I can get this person to help you do that. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. Just because I don't say yes, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a no. I'll give you an example. There was a situation, someone came to me and asked me if I wanted to do a project for them. Love doing it. I learned shiny penny, don't say yes up front. I said, let me get back to you. Let me check my schedule. I want to make sure I can devote the time that's needed to be able to provide you the service that you're requesting. I went back and there was no way. I was completely slammed. I had a ton of stuff, travel coming up. I didn't want to sacrifice that. Some of it was with my family. It wasn't that mine was necessarily a no. It was, unfortunately, I'm not able to do this at this point. However, my peer, Joe, is able to do it. And so I was able to provide them with a resource or a solution to their question without me actually being the one that had to do it. Think about that when you're saying yes to things. It may be, not necessarily a no, but maybe there's a different way. The other thing is, are they asking you the right question? They ask a question to somebody, and then you realize that that's not really the question that they're needing to ask. And sometimes it's able to, when somebody asks you to do something, and it's a non-productive task that you don't really want to do, maybe you turn it around and ask them the question, are you really asking me to do this? Or is this what you're asking me? Or is this what you're needing? And it may be something so different and so simplistic that it enables you to do it immediately without having to put a lot of time and effort into what they're needing you to do. Think about that when someone's asking you. I guess my takeoff, and the other one is pettiness. Look, I got an ego. I can imagine everybody else doesn't have an ego. Sometimes women were our own worst enemy when it comes to our ego. We get asked to do things and we're like, yeah, hey, that's going to make me look good. I can post it on my social media. Everybody thinks I'm really important. Take the ego out of it. Take the pettiness out of it. If it's not something that truly fits your values, don't do it. And you don't have to do it. That's the best part about it. You don't have to do anything. Choose and be intentional. Intentional is a word I use all the time. Be intentional about what you do based on where you want your path to go. So one last thing, I'd love to give you guys an action step to take after this podcast today. As I mentioned, I had to learn not to say yes immediately to anything. So one of the tasks I've done is when someone asks me to do something, my response is, hey, thank you so much for asking me to do that. But let me go back and check my schedule and make sure that I can devote the time that's necessary to make sure you're successful. And what I'm doing is I'm telling them, hey, what you're asking me to do is really important to me. And it's also is important to me enough that I'm going to go back and make sure that I can do it. That helps you. Okay. Because I've had situations, example, where I've offered to help people and then I just don't have time. Right. So at the end of the day, it just makes me look bad. And it's not that I intentionally did that, but that's just how things work. And that's where I've learned that just because I say no to something, it's not always a negative. It actually can be a positive. My no can be somebody else's yes. So go back and think about some of the times you said yes and think about, could I have changed the dynamics of the conversation by saying, hey, thank you so much for asking me. Let me go back and look at my calendar, make sure I can devote the time. That gives you the ability to get yourself out of the situation if that's what you want, and or really go back and look at your schedule and incorporate the time that's needed to fulfill that task. So hope that was helpful today, guys. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Get Real, Get Results. Now get off your ass, get out there, and enjoy the life that you want to live. We're here if you need guidance, and until next time, do your best, enjoy the small victories, and stay unstoppable. And don't forget to visit chantellpreston.com for coaching or keynote booking information. And remember, you have to get real to get results.